It's Thursday and time for Worldview with Denis Campbell. Denis is editor-in-chief of UK Progressive Magazine, also author of the book Egypt Unshackled and the ebook The Vagina Wars, the Republican War on Women. Denis, let's take an overview of the latest in Syria, where there has been a lot happening. Let's start there.
Well, as you know, Syria was one of the countries that followed in the heels of Egypt in the Arab Spring. They decided to start their own democracy efforts. But unlike in Egypt, where the government and the army are separate entities and the people adore the army, the government and the army in Syria are one. And of course, you have a president there in Bashar al-Assad, who is literally following in the footsteps of his father and massacring his own people. Over the weekend, there was a very serious attack on the town of Hula, which is another one of these towns that have sprung up over the last several years outside of Damascus. And what they've done is they've basically gone door to door, killing something like 85 women and children, just going house to house. And these were very specifically non-uniform supporters of the Assad regime. Of course, the Assad regime will not claim any responsibility because they were not uniformed. And if you remember back to Egypt, we had ununiformed police that attacked the protesters in Tahrir Square on camel and horseback, which then led to 2 or 3 days of almost medieval violence.
Okay, so give us a sense of right now. I mean, I think whenever we've been talking about Egypt and the progress there, I think an interesting question is, what is the average of a person's life for day to day? How dangerous is it? How do you get around? I mean, talk a little bit about the kind of illegal and ad hoc, off the record cities and towns that are cropping up. How dangerous is it?
It's very dangerous, and you have, just as you had in Egypt, a real situation where it's almost a class warfare situation in the literal sense. You have a ruling military class that supports the government of Bashar al-Assad, and they have become accustomed to a life of privilege and trade, etc. Inside Damascus, the capital city of Syria, you would look and you would think life is going on pretty much as normal. When you get outside of the city, and the biggest fear of most of those inside the city, you have these, as you mentioned, ad hoc communities that have sprung up over the years. They are completely lawless. There's no control over them. And literally, you know, people will grab a bunch of cylinder blocks and some tin roofs and literally construct a building overnight. They'll throw a wire up onto one of the large electrical wires overhead and steal electricity from the grid. And they're completely illegal, and they're completely off the grid. But these are the hotbeds, and these are where the tribal rebel forces have come together and formed what we're seeing now as the opposition.
So the difference between rich and poor could not be greater. I mean, there, like you said, in Damascus, there are wealthy people who are living basically a great life.
Yeah, indeed, and that's not uncommon. What you've seen in throughout most of the Middle East is what I call a demographic time bomb that has literally exploded. This is, I think, even more so than just a hatred of Mubarak. What caused Egypt to fall was that you had a small percentage of the population, you know, people, mostly men in their 70s and 80s, 60s at the outset, that controlled probably 40, 50, 60% of all the business, and a very large underclass of people that were living on less than $2 a day. And the average age in most of these countries is somewhere around 28, 29 years of age. And the parallels that I make are, if you look at what's happening even in the United States with the presidential election, you have a growing young Hispanic community that is having a lot of babies and a lot of children, opposed to the current members of the GOP, which I call the white old men's club. And, you know, they are dying off at an alarming rate, and they're not being replaced. So you have the census figure, for example, showing that non-whites have, for the first time, non-white births have outpaced those of white births in the U.S. Demographics change everywhere, and you can't lie. They will always catch up with you.
Talk a little bit about, you know, it seems pretty clear which way the very rich and the very poor are leading in Syria, but what is the extent of the so-called middle class there, and is there any unification as far as which way they are leaning in this?
Well, the interesting thing about the middle class is that they have been sort of sitting on the fence. There is a middle class there, just as there are in most of these states. They tend to favor the existing regime only because of the need and desire for stability. And if you're in the middle class, as you see in the middle class in the United States, as we see here in Europe, the last thing you want to see is what's going on, for example, in Greece, where there's upheaval, you're in the middle of a depression, you then add on austerity on top of that that causes a depression. There's the same sort of financial situations going on across the Middle East. So when you get into Damascus, you do have a middle class that enjoys going out to restaurants, enjoys going to coffee shops, etc. But they can't because of this ongoing war in between. And many thought that this middle class would see, the brutality of the Assad regime and come to the aid of the rebels. But the rebels are so disorganized that no one is really coming to their aid at this point. And when you look at the debate that's going on and went on the Sunday talk shows in the U.S., all the political shows, everyone is saying, particularly on the Republican side, well, President Obama has again failed to show a lack of leadership, which is absolutely ridiculous because he's done everything that both Mitt Romney has proposed as well as John McCain would have done at that point in time, short of putting boots on the ground, because we don't want to have a third war with the 15th largest army in the world, which is the Syrian army.
All right, Denis Campbell, editor-in-chief of UK Progressive Magazine. Great continued work on Middle East related matters. We'll talk to you not next week because we will be at Netroots Nation, but then we will talk to you 2 weeks from today. Thanks as always.
Thank you. And just let me say one other quick thing. We have a writer on that has been contributing to our publication. His name is Charlie James. We're going to be featuring him in an article this evening, and he's recently gone through 3 years of fighting back from cancer treatments. And if anybody could just take a look at our site, ukprogressive.co.uk, and take a look at possibly helping. This guy has really been through the worst of it, and now, after so many years, he's actually homeless. His story is on the blog today. If anybody in your audience could help him out, we'd really appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Denis. I'm sure our audience will take a look at it.
Thank you so much, David. Have a good week.